Yeah, my name is Steve Monroe.
Okay, Steve, where are you from?
I'm from, I was born in Knox County, but I've been in Blount County for most of my life.
So you went through the Blount County school system?
Right. I've been in, went to Rockford for a couple of years, and so graduated from Porter High School before it moved to Heritage, and that was in 1968, and went into the military in 1969.
Okay, and what branch did you go in?
I was in the Army.
In the Army?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So when you joined the Army, where did you go for training?
I started out in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. I did basic there and also AIT there in training. And then I've got field training for Vietnam in different locations, and some training at Fort Bragg.
And what were you training for? What was your job?
I was a communications chief.
Okay.
They call it an 05B40, I think today. They may still use the same number on it, but it's so I was in charge of some radio communications, but it was still a combat role, combat veteran.
Okay. So after your training, how soon did you, when were you sent to Vietnam?
Finished training in Fort Jackson and those areas and getting ready for Vietnam. Orders cut in November. I was through with the training in probably August, September time frame. I had a 30-day before, and then I shipped to Vietnam. Orders cut for December, early December 1969, and so got in the process and ended up in Vietnam. Stayed there, was wounded in action there, stayed in Vietnam till late November of 1970.
Okay. So when you first got to Vietnam, what was your first impression of being there?
Well, it's tropic, and so we get off in one gear. I came out of Seattle, Tacoma area. It was like 30 degrees when I left, and it was 100 when I landed in Cameron Bay. So you swelled up real quick. So it was quite a shock to the system. But the training, I was made squad leader when I was in AIT and basic and different things. So a lot of the training was already in good shape. Played sports in high school, football and everything. So I physically was in very good shape going in. But it would definitely test you in this environment of the tropics.
I bet. And what unit were you assigned to?
I started out with 4th Army Division, and had orders cut for a Maricel Division in Vietnam. It was out of Chu Lai. Got to Chu Lai, and the commander there said that they was going to move me, so they detached and moved me to 5th Special Forces Group that I served with. It was a campsite A-107. It was in Trebon, Vietnam, and so we actually took care of the villages and cliques so many far away. Anybody come into our area, I had to approve them coming in there, had helicopters and everything. And so we had a base camp there, sort of underground. We had a 12-man team, and so everybody had a different specialty. And of course, mine was communication specialist. So I did all the radio work for them and different things. And there was one guy transitioned out with Special Forces as I came in, and that's the reason that they needed somebody in right away. So they just placed me with them. So good move, very veteran. If you ever want to be in a war, you want to be with Special Forces, so that's where I started with.
Wow. So when you got to Special Forces, what was your rank?
I landed in Vietnam as an E2 because I just come out of AIT and everything. And they immediately said if you're in Special Forces, you have to be an E5 or above. So they cut orders for me, and I went from an E2 to an E5. Colonel Madsen was the commander for the Special Forces group, so they officially welcomed me in and made me a part of the team, and so that's the only ones I really knew. I spent my year with the Special Forces group in AIT here, and then I closed out in Fort Carson, Colorado, as I left the military.
Okay. When you first got to your team with the Special Forces, did they welcome you? And
oh yeah, they was very receptive. They just welcomed me right in and immediately made me a part of their team. They officially gave me a Green Beret, and those type of things. And so I was immediately just put in their group and welcomed right into the unit. So I went from a lot of training and not expectations, and then ended up getting, I call it a promotion, to be put over there. I would have been a combat 05B out in the field with a regular 11 Bush group. And so, but they needed, with the need there, they'd use me to fill that need for them. So, and I still stay in contact with some of my Vietnam Special Forces friends that I knew. And so they had, the 12-man team, everybody had a specialty. I mean, you had a doctor, you had this, and so everybody had their own specialty, and they just blended them in. And and we managed several cliques of area at a place called Trebong, Vietnam. So we managed that and took care of the villagers, tried to help protect that. And also we would run combat missions, surveillance around those areas. Got involved in calling in a lot of air support. Got out on a maneuver one time and we got pinned down pretty hard. And at that time the biggest thing going was called an F-4 Phantom jet. Got to talk to this guy while we're pinned down, and he was saying, get all you guys down as low as you can, and because it's right in front of us, and the Phantom was bringing in stuff that got us out of that jam. So it's
What was that like, hearing the roar of the F4 and being in harm's way? And
yeah, it is very scary. And of course, as young at the time, I was probably 20, 21 years old. So it's and like I say, played sports in high school and did a lot of things. So it was really more positioned than a lot of folks just going into the military. But it was your anxiety levels were always high, and so we got into a lot of scraps there. What we did was 2 men out of our 12-man team would take what we called CIDG, a Civilian Irregular Defense Command. They were sort of like ARBANs, but Special Forces managed a different group. We'd take them out on field maneuvers just to see, if there's any combat enemy in around the area other than VC, because the NBA is what we had was our big fight, North Vietnamese Army. And so we'd do those maneuvers, and so we'd do it a week at a time, and the 2 of us would go out, and so I was part of that maneuvering, and so we got involved in that. September the 8th of 1970, we got overrun in our campsite. We got overrun. They call it the Battle of Trebong. I think there's some history records there. But the NBA Army was what got us. And I know there's a group of Rangers down below us, and they killed all the Rangers below us. And but we were spared out a lot, and they was doing a transition from Special Forces to Rangers. They was going to start taking some of the responsibility for where we was at. And that's how the enemy knew this particular transition was taking place. They knew it because it was some of our guys had already moved out, and so they overrun our camp. And so we was in about a 3-day battle. I was having to call in air support, which they say, is this friendly or not? And it's hard to tell them because you've got people. There's stuff coming from everywhere. My position up there, and as I was sharing with you, is I slept inside of a 30 cal bunker area, and RPG hit directly the bunker I was in. I was got shrapnel in other places, and later awarded the Purple Heart. So it's that's sort of and then from that point on, I was sort of a lame duck in a sense until I left Vietnam, because it did a lot of different things there. So.
When you were hit, were you knocked unconscious? Were you?
Yeah, we look at concussions today. I definitely had one. I mean, I was rattled, but we still had to finish that. I mean, we was under siege, and they were actually in our campsite. The thing they called sapper units, 406 sapper units, had come through our wire and was inside the camp with us in there. So we was having a real struggle. It was of course, the start of this battle was in the middle of the night, so it's couldn't see anything, no lights or anything. I was running down a tunnel that we had underground facilities in, and I was running through that tunnel and run over, I think, one of those snappers. Probably flattened him out, but you couldn't see nothing, so it was one of them. So, but this thing went on for 3 days until they got control of it. There was a large number of North Vietnamese killed in this, But like I say, we lost a group of our Rangers below us, and then the CIDG was deployed with us in this campsite. This was the Vietnamese soldiers, and a lot of them were killed, and so there's a lot of life lost. I think the history records of the Battle of Trebon shows a lot of what was taking place. But so anyway, that was a very rocky deal there, but lived through it. I think the Lord was on my side, even though I hadn't probably really knew Him at that time, but He spared me out. So that's sort of where we're at today.
Wow. When did you make your way back to the States?
I came back to, and this is what weird, and you know that Vietnam was a very political issue. Mm-hmm. And so I left in the end of November, or 1st of December, coming back to the United States, and went through Hawaii. Well, it was so politically against the soldiers of Vietnam that they actually put us in a holding tank under some of the airport facilities. We didn't mingle with the people because there was actually an anti-Vietnam thing going on. So we was sort of placed there. I went back to, I've come out of 105 degrees and landed in Seattle, Tacoma, coming back, and it was snow flurrying, and I had on jungle fatigues, and about froze to death on that transition. So, and then finally got back into my home in Maryville, and so then they cut orders, and I finished my tours in Fort Carson, Colorado, and I was over communications at Fort Carson. I was a 05B40, a commo chief, they called it. And so I finished out there, and we did maneuvers there and different things for the months I had left, and then I ended my service. I had a MOS that they wanted, but they would give you monies to re-up and stay in, so evaluated that, was married, and what's funny about this too is I left for Vietnam. I got married on December the 5th in '69, and left, supposed to leave like 2 days later, going to Vietnam. So anyway, my wife was here for a year by herself, and so it was quite a different thing. So it's
wow.
But it was quite an experience. It's and I was serving my country, and so even though the anti-sentiment of that day was against Vietnam veterans and the Vietnam War in particular, it's now been I see people today and they say, "Welcome home," and so it's been more of a moving experience coming back to and welcoming back, and finally getting some recognition for the service that our guys did. A lot of lives lost in Vietnam, mm-hmm. and a lot of different things, and a lot of things we had to go through. But it was an experience, and again, I was there to serve my country. So.
Well, you definitely, and all of our Vietnam veterans have earned that recognition, and I'm so glad that they get it today.
Yeah.
Any other stories or highlights that?
No, it was just sort of, again, as I go back and look at it, and I'm a Christian believer today, but I see where God's hand was sort of in the whole process of my protection, because it was life could have been lost in this overrun for sure, and but made it through that process, and here today. And so we do a lot of activities today, and again, Army was good to me. They were good people. And so anyway, that's physically today I was in an area where Agent Orange was sprayed. I'm battling 2 different cancers right now, and so it's one of those things there's a lot of veterans go through, and a lot of our Vietnam friends have got this Agent Orange problem. So it's a struggle. That's the battle. That's the second battle I'm in today, is fighting this cancer problem.
But we definitely be praying for you and hope you can overcome it. But definitely wanted to say thank you, Stephen, for doing this interview, and we're proud of you, and it's an honor to meet with you today and share your story.
Thank you, Nate. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.